Om Agana Timaranda Sangana Gana Salakya Chaksuru Militam Yena Tasmai Sugiravedamaha Sri Chaitanya Manobi Stam Stapitam Yena Bhutare Sayam Rupakaramayam Darati Swaparantikam Vande Ham Sri Guru Syata Parakamaram Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Ladita Sri Vishakan Vitam Sta Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Sarasati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Praskata De Satarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayodhiraya Nishta Prayashu Vadvesu Nitya Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavati Atamashoki Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Nigamaka Padur Garitam Padam Shuka Makaram Ritadra Visamitam Pivata Bhagatam Rashamara Hom Mahoro Rasika Bhavi Bhavakaham Krishna Sadam Bhagate Damaganami Hisaha Karonasto Nusamasha Paranako Dinoditaham Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutade Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Sarasati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nirvishes Sanyavadi Paskada Desar Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Rama Hare Hare. Welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. Bill, Joe, Taruni, and Jimmy, Govinda Dave. Hope you all had a great Radhastami yesterday. We had celebrations here in Spanish Fork from noon till 2 o'clock with a nice arti and 108 names. Rupa Manjari, good morning. 108 names of Radha, as well as a flower offering and a couple of special bhajans by Advaita Prabhu. And I also saw online how they had a very nice abhishek and talk and kirtan in honor of Srimati Radharani. There's a talk by Rasamrita Swami, 2017, Melbourne, Australia. If it's not too late, the day after. That's a really clear, well-presented, simple talk for the layman. All kinds of insightful points about the nature of Srimati Radharani. We played that on our big screen in the temple room for a lot of the volunteers who don't have really any context or background in Krishna consciousness. And beginning from the starting line, beginning from point zero, they found it was very helpful. Radharani is the highest, the most secret, confidential aspect of our philosophy. So for someone to be so expert as to present it to a novice, someone who's walked in the door just that day, is quite a credit. So Rasamrita Swami did a great job. 2017 in Melbourne on the occasion of Radhastami. And we had our own effort yesterday morning to present a slideshow about Radha, which wasn't ideal from a technical point of view. I thought that I would share the screen on a Zoom call, and according to what I was seeing on Zoom, slideshow was up and running and progressing from slide to slide. But then when I reviewed everything as it was supposed to have been simulcasting on Facebook Live, the slideshow never got up on the screen fully, and it was just the first slide the whole time. So anyway, sorry for that aggravation. Trying to do better from a technological point of view in the future, but we took that off of our Facebook page because it was just too embarrassing. Good morning, Rakesh. Jai Ho. Thank you. We're starting a new chapter in the Bhagavatam, chapter 3 in the first canto, and this is the first verse this morning on Wisdom Wednesday. Jagre, Sutta Uvacha, Sutta Goswami speaking, Radhesham, good morning. Jagrehe, Purusham Rupam Bhagavan Mahad Adibihi Sambhutam Sodasha Kalam Ado Loka Shrikshaya. Sutta Goswami said, in the beginning of the creation, the Lord first expanded himself in the universal form of the Purusha incarnation and manifested all the ingredients for the material creation. And thus at first there was the creation of the 16 principles of material action. This was for the purpose of creating the material universe. And the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the Bhagavad Gita states that the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, maintains these material universes by expanding his plenary expansions So this Purusha form is the confirmation of the same principle. The original personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, or Lord Krishna, who is famous as the son of Vasudeva, or King Nanda, is full with all opulences, all potencies, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. Part of his opulences are manifested as impersonal Brahman, and part of his opulences are manifested as Paramatma. This Purusha feature of the same personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the original Paramatma manifestation of the Lord. There are 3 Purusha features in the material creation, and this form, who is known as Karnadakshay Vishnu, is the first of the 3. The others are known as the Garbhodakshay Vishnu and the Kshirodakshay Vishnu, which we shall know one after another. The innumerable universes are generated from the skin holes or pores of this Karnadakshay Vishnu or Mahavishnu, and in each one of the universes the Lord enters as Garbhodakshay Vishnu. In Brahma Samhita it is said, Diparchareva dashantam vabhapeta dipayatareva vita hetusha yastadhyugeva cha vishnutaya vipati govindamari purusham tamaham vajami. Lord Brahma, the creator of this universe, says, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord. He is compared to light, and his light manifests, emanates, as well as enters into, pervades, and supports all of the material and spiritual creations. Just like the light of one candle can be transferred to hundreds or thousands of other candles, that light from one candle can be expanded to bring light to much greater spatial dimensions. Similarly, from the original Shriyam Bhagavan, the original unlimitedly powerful, omnipotent, and omniscient form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, comes expansions like the Vishnu expansions, the Purusha avatar expansions, the Leela avatar expansions, the Guna avatar expansions. And it is through the expansion of his light, just like the sun is in one corner of the universe, but that doesn't do us any good. What does us good is the energy of the sun in the form of sunshine expanding out 93 million miles away and touching us with all of its warmth and heat and life-giving vibrations. Similarly, Krishna is omnipotent. He's nothing to do with this material world. He has his own transcendental planet called Goloka Vrindavan. But at the same time, emanating from his original Swadham, his original intimate transcendental abode, there are all the expansions of the Lord, who then in turn become creative energies or creative potencies themselves, and they create the spiritual and then the material world. The first expansion, which manifests the universe of the material world, is called Karnadakshay Vishnu, or Mahavishnu. And as Prabhupada says, from the breathing and from the pores of his skin, the universes emanate, and originally they're very small. They're like little tiny golden eggs. Then the Karnadakshay Vishnu further expands himself into Garbhodakshay Vishnu. Garbhodakshay Vishnu enters into each and every one of the universes, and then because of the presence of Garbhodakshay Vishnu within the universes expand. And they're always expanding. They're constantly expanding. And then the Lord expands a third time, another Purusha incarnation, which is Kshirodakshay Vishnu, and he enters into every atom as well as into the heart of every living being. The light is one, and the original light is Krishna, but because he's unlimitedly powerful, that light expands itself and enters into the dark conglomerate elements of this material world: earth, air, fire, water, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, and animates them, pervades them, and supports them. So the light is one, but that one light has become many. Example is given, again, of the sun being one sole entity in the sky. But if you put 100 pots on the ground, pots of water, you'll see that same sun reflected in each and every pot. If you do 1,000 pots, 5,000 pots, 100,000 pots, 1,000,000 pots, that one sun will be reflected in each and every pot. So similarly, the one Supreme Lord enters into all of the universes, pervades and supports them, just like the one sun through sunshine covers every single nook and cranny of the universe. Prabhupada writes here, The majestic manifestation of Krishna is Narayan, Lord of Vaikuntha, whose subjective portion is Karadakshay Vishnu, the prime cause, whose portion of Karadakshay Vishnu is Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and again the subjective portion of Garbhodakshay Vishnu is Sirodakshay Vishnu. And Prabhupada indicates here that the word Vishnu itself means all-pervading, omnipresent, and omniscient. And the Bhagavad Gita is also mentioned that the material world is created at certain intervals. It's created, it manifests itself for some time, and then it's destroyed. This is different from the spiritual world, which is Parash Tasmot Tobivovyo Vyakta Vyakta Sanatana Yasa Sarvabhadushu Nasyatsu Nabhinasati. The spiritual world, as distinct from the material world, is always manifested, is always present, is never destroyed. But the difference between the spiritual world and the material world is that the material world is temporary. It comes and goes. Bhuta gramaya sa evayam bhutva bhutva praliyate ratamagame shabhata prabhavanti aharagame. Example is given that we have anger within us, but the anger is not always manifested. Sometimes the anger comes out and manifests itself temporarily, and then it retracts itself within us. Similarly, from the body of the Lord, the material world comes, manifests itself for a vast period of time. In fact, the number of years that this material world manifests is calculated at roughly 311 trillion years. And all that is an exhalation. It's an exhalation from the huge, gigantic body of Karunadakshay Vishnu. Manifests, maintains itself for some time, and then when the Lord again inhales after 311 trillion years, that whole material world is destroyed. So the conditioned souls within these material worlds are called Nitya Bada. The eternally liberated souls within the non-changing, always manifested spiritual world are called Nitya Siddhas. Those are perfected, eternally existing living beings. Now, about 1/4 of those living beings have decided to separate themselves from the spiritual world and try to enjoy separate from God in this material world. And they are called Nitya Badhas. And they are not motivated by Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. They don't see themselves as eternal servants of Lord. They've concocted some other way of perceiving themselves in terms of the body, the ego, the land in which they were born, the byproducts of the body, the relatives, the country members. In this way, they see themselves in terms of matter rather than in terms of spirit. When you see yourself in terms of spirit, you see yourself as what we call a predominated enjoyer. When you start seeing yourself in terms of matter, you step into an illusory worldview which puts yourself at the center of everything, which strives individually for you to be the predominator enjoyer. So we have two options, one's false and one's true. The false option, the false worldview, is to see ourselves as predominator. Right now we're in the middle of a pandemic. Before the pandemic started, I'm sure that many of us felt pretty good about the amount of money we had in the bank. We felt pretty good about the house we lived in. Of course, the nature of material world is you're never satisfied. You're always pouring fuel on the flames due to advertising, radio, television, to the pressures of the cultural mores. We're always striving for more and more and more and more and more and more. But overall, I think before the pandemic started, we felt that we were pretty well in charge. Maybe we didn't have all the toys that we wanted to, but we felt okay. We felt pretty well situated. That bubble was certainly popped, I think you'll agree with me, when this little tiny microscopic virus started spreading itself all over the world. Now we're a little less inclined to see ourselves as the predominator enjoyers at this point in time, and that is God's mercy. He's letting the air out of our false egos and bringing us to a more stable groundwork of reality. Our problem, in fact, from the very get-go, the reason that we leave the spiritual world and come to this material world is that we're not happy being predominated. We want to be the predominators. Purusha prakriti stohi bhunkte prakritid gangaram karanad guna sangasyat sadasat yoni janmashu. There is Purusha, who is the predominator, in fact, who is known as Krishna, Govinda, Allah, Emmanuel, Jehovah, by many names in different cultures. But he is the predominator. He is the energetic source. And from him, multifarious Parasya Shakti potencies emanate. Now, there's only one supreme predominator and controller, Ekala Ishvara, and his name is Krishna. His highest name is Krishna. Ada Sabhabrita, all others are his servants. But we, even though we are constitutionally servants, even though we are constitutionally parts, constitutionally subordinate to the Lord, constitutionally predominated, we have some or other stepped into this illusion that due to technological advancement and due to surrounding ourselves with money in the bank and a good house and family members and country members, that we can somehow or other elevate or leverage ourselves into a position of being the predominators. That's just not going to happen, ever. That's not who we constitutionally are. It's like the leaf trying to be the tree, the finger trying to be the whole body. It's just not possible. Nevertheless, we slip into that illusion. That illusion is the cause, sada sat jona janmashu. When the enjoyed sees themselves as the enjoyer, when the predominated aspires to be the predominator, then everything goes awry. Everything goes south in human society, and it doesn't fare very well for the animals or for the ecological world either when the human being steps into that illusory point of view. Fact is that we're dominated. We're predominated. Now, Prabhupada uses a word here, and I'll just finish this purport. The Nityabhada, or eternally conditioned souls, have the sense of ego or ahankara, which dictates them sense enjoyment, which they are unable to have constitutionally. Now, we're not saying that you can't enjoy. In fact, we're saying you can enjoy unlimitedly. We're saying that spiritual enjoyment is anandam buddhi vardhanam. It is ever increasing and unlimited. And when you turn to spirit, which has no boundaries, no limitations, then you can enjoy unrestrictedly. Then you enjoy on a spiritual level. However, when you try to squeeze matter, dull, dead matter, and get juice out of it, it's a useless endeavor. It's like trying to sow seed on a barren land. You're just going to be frustrated. The more you try, the more you exert yourself, the less you're going to get. And so trying to be a predominator enjoyer is a fruitless endeavor. The sooner one gives it up and surrenders to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, the sooner one is going to enjoy without limitations. So that's the summum bonum of the human form of life, is to wake up and to realize that constitutionally we're parts, constitutionally we're predominant. Let our loving Father, who has boundless affection for us, who has unlimited ambitions for us to grow up and be men and women of faith and maturity, character, integrity, insightfulness, to be great lovers and great missionaries and great preachers and great ambassadors and representatives for our great Lord. All that lays before us. The Lord wants all that for us, but we have to make one essential adjustment in our consciousness. We have to agree to be servants and stop fruitlessly trying to be the masters in this material world. This translates into becoming more intelligent, going from being less intelligent to being more intelligent. These are the words that Prabhupada uses here. The less intelligent, who try to remain within this material world, may try to be elevated to higher planets. But a problem is, you have to come back down after a lifespan of enjoying pious activities, pious fruits on earth as a human being. The reward is that one can elevate oneself within the material world to the level of demigods, where one has a lifespan of hundreds of thousands of years, a standard of living which is inconceivably higher than what we enjoy here. But the problem is it's temporary. When those stockpile of pious activities exhaust itself, when the sands sift out of the hourglass, one again has to come down to the planet of Earth. So during the manifestation of this material world, during the daytime of Lord Brahma, the living entities, the Nityabhatas, the conditioned souls who want to enjoy, strive to do so by activities on the higher, the middle, and the lower planets, by reincarnating repeatedly amongst the reptiles, the mammals, the aquatics, the birds, the insects, the human beings, and the demigods. This is the scope of their activities. Repeated reincarnation, traveling up and down throughout the higher, the middle, and lower planetary systems in a fruitless quest for dominance and for squeezing out enjoyment. It's just like a Ferris wheel, sometimes up and sometimes down, but nothing really essentially different. Punapanas charvita charvananam. Same eating, same sleeping, same mating, same defending. Some lifetimes you may be doing as a demigod, enjoying the results of pious activities. Some lifetimes you may be doing as a pig, as a result of impious activities. But it's the same essential four activities: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. If you drink milk from an iron pot or you drink milk from a gold pot, it's still milk. If you have sex as a demigod or if you have sex as a pig, it's still sex. It's still the same temporary, fleeting feeling. The point is that in this material world, during the 311 trillion years of its manifestation during the daytime of Brahma, the range of sense pleasures which are available are limited and repetitive and redundant. Prabhupada says here, when they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of material attachment experience only repeated birth and death. Now, here's the best advice that you'll ever hear. I've got this all in red here, so please listen. Prabhupada says, one should better take to the spiritual world to enjoy an eternal life of bliss and knowledge and never return to this material, miserable existence. If you object to that, you've got the comment section. Go for it. Give us your argument about how continuing in our present endeavor to enjoy as a predominator in this material world is the way to go. You've been doing it. You've been exerting yourself in that regard for who knows how many thousands of years and who knows how many thousands or tens of thousands of incarnations. Has it brought you fulfillment? Has it brought you satisfaction? And it can never do so. Here's a simple, there are many reasons, but here's a simple, fundamental reason why this path is not the path for you and me. It is that we are eternal. God created us without a beginning, without a middle, and without an end. And this material world, as 311 trillion years, seems like a long time, but it is temporary nevertheless. Therefore, the eternal living being can never be fully satisfied in a temporary material manifestation. This is not our permanent home. It will never be our permanent home. No matter what adjustments we make, It can never be our permanent home. In fact, the whole material creation, in one purport, Prabhupada compares it to a county fair. If you ever read any of these novels about life in the medieval times, there weren't shopping malls made of concrete and steel. Basically, there were rural villages based on agriculture. And the main markets, the main bazaars, were held on the weekends. There would be traveling bazaars, traveling merchants who would go with their goods from one place to another and set up temporarily with tents and commercial amenities, so that perhaps one Saturday a month, like the flea markets that we know nowadays, people would have the option of buying a wide range of goods. It wasn't like there were brick and mortar storefronts. It wasn't like there were Walmarts or Targets. The commercial interests were itinerant. They would set up for some period of time, then they would pack it all up and go somewhere else. So similarly, this whole material creation, generated by Vishnu, presided over by the Vishnu, the Paramatma expansions of the Lord, it is only a temporary show only, just like a country fair. Now, at the end of this material manifestation, there's a total annihilation at the end of Brahma's day, and there are also partial annihilations throughout Brahma's day. So if one is still in material consciousness, if one still desires, if one is still exerting oneself to be a predominator enjoyer, at the time of cosmic annihilation, then one is destroyed along with all the planets, higher, middle, and lower ethereal planets, retracted into the body of Vishnu, where one sleeps for a vast period of time. But the interesting thing is that when the creation is remanifested, bhutva bhutva paliyate, when it comes out again, all the living entities who went to sleep, whose karmic endeavors were interrupted at the end of the last creation, they reappear through the glance of Lord Vishnu into material nature, and they again spring up in 8,400,000 species of life to resume their activities which were interrupted at the last creation. Interesting, isn't it? Just like, for instance, I'm sure you've all experienced, whatever it was you were thinking of, the last thought in your mind before you went to sleep is often the first thought when you wake up in the morning. So similarly, even though the period of non-manifestation is vast, and we're, for practical purposes, on a lower level of consciousness, almost unconscious, when the creation resumes, we are impregnated within that creation amongst the 8,400,000 species of life, and we recollect the activities of our previous life. The current body that we're awarded by the arrangement of the Lord is just a pseudo body to continue to pick up where we left off at the end of the previous creation. Therefore, and this is a stunning meditation, think about this, our sojourn as eternal spirit souls, part and parcel of God, in this material world may not have even dated from this current creation. Calculations indicate that right now we're about halfway through a day of Brahma. That means out of a 311 trillion year period of manifestation, we're about 155 trillion years into the creation of this current present Lord Brahma. However, we could very well have entered into the material creation from a previous creation. Now that's a sobering thought. And what have we accomplished? What have we got to show for it? In each and every one of who many countless lifetimes we've strived mightily to have name and fame and recognition, to propagate dynasties, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, to put money in the bank, to protect ourselves and secure houses with security systems and bodyguards and armies and missiles. Every time we were kicked out, just as soon as we thought we had everything lined up, we thought we had the security that we've been working for, we got kicked out unceremoniously without even a moment's notice or advance warning. And we took birth in another womb and had to start all over again. So here's an option. Here's an option. If you have to start something, don't start the same thing that has been fruitless for thousands and thousands of years. Don't continue to run on that little treadmill like a rat. Don't buy into any more the rat race. If you have to start something, start your Krishna consciousness. Just as our material consciousness is carried over from a previous creation, and we're once again impregnated within this material nature, embodied to undergo another round of birth, death, disease, and old age. Krishna consciousness is also never atrophied. It never perishes. We never lose it. Narada Muni tells us in the first canto, 6th chapter, 24th verse of the Bhagavatam, Matir Mayi Nivadiyam Navipadyata Pradyasarga Naradami Shmitir Chanad Anugraha. Shmitir means remembrance of your previous life. Mad Anugraha. By the mercy of the Lord, whatever advancement or whatever scintilla of Krishna consciousness one has achieved in a previous life or even in a previous creation, that is never thwarted. Krishna says to Narada Muni, intelligence engaged in my devotion cannot be thwarted at any time, even at the time of creation, as well as at the time of annihilation. Remembrance of me by my devotees will continue without cessation. Prabhupada writes here, but the eternally conditioned souls, forgetful of their constitutional position, come into this material world with strong aspirations to predominate. Now, the chance to enjoy matter is given to the Nityabhata, fallen conditioned souls in this material world, but side by side, simultaneously, with the limited, restricted chance to enjoy family, friends, and country, name, fame, prestige, side by side, the Lord always makes available to them the chance to understand their real constitutional position. And here I've got this sentence in red. The fortunate living entities who catch the truth and surrender unto the lotus feet of Vasudeva after many, many births in this material world, join the Nitya Siddha, the eternally liberated souls, and are thus allowed to enter into the kingdom of Godhead. After this, such fortunate living entities need not come again within the occasional material creation. What beautiful way Prabhupada has of putting it. What beautiful prose. He's saying that it is fortunate souls who catch the absolute truth. Now, you've all probably seen on television during a baseball game when a batter in the major leagues, a star, someone who has a famous name, hits a foul ball or hits a home run, the fans in the stands are mad if they can catch that ball. They'll jostle each other, they'll throw a hip into each other, and if they are the lucky ones who catch the ball, their day is made. They'll keep that ball as a souvenir or memento. They'll think of themselves as highly fortunate if they can catch the ball. Similarly, those who catch the absolute truth, who catch the difference between the spiritual and material world, who catch the difference between seeing oneself falsely as a predominator and truly seeing oneself as a predominated, they are fortunate souls. And who is throwing out the ball? ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. International, with 700 to 800 centers all over the world, distributing the holy name, going out in public places, and making the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, freely available to all the thousands of, more than 50 years, every day devotees go out for 3 or 4 hours on Oxford Street in London, where congregate visitors and tourists from all over the world. People, they're throwing the ball of the holy name, throwing the ball of Krishna consciousness, doing Rath Yatra festivals in major cities all over the world, going out into major streets, lined with pedestrians from all over the world, Venice Beach, Los Angeles, Trafalgar Square in London, and people get a chance to hear again the holy name of the Lord, to see the divine form of Krishna out in public, and to take prasadam, to ask questions at the question and answer booth. And speaking of prasadam, they're throwing out the ball of spiritually consecrated food. In India alone, amongst school children, there are 2 million meals of Krishna karma-free prasadam served out every single day to school children. What to speak of the other prasadam that's served out to the devotees or the people who visit the temple or come to festivals, the prasadam that's distributed in Europe and South America, all over. It's mind-numbing, the scope, the resources, the energy, the selflessness of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Thousands and thousands of Krishna devotees working under the guidance of our Param Guru, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, asking nothing for themselves because we've already got everything that we need, but throwing out balls, left, right, and center, prasadam, holy name, books, information, temples, festivals, throwing them out, and yet how many people are jostling, eager, excited, enthusiastic to catch those balls? Oh, they'll get incidentally, they'll hear the holy name incidentally while they're shopping. They'll take some prasadam incidentally while they're at a festival. They'll ask a question out of idle curiosity. They'll visit the temple because their teacher told them to experience an alternative religion. Of course, all that's going on. And there's countless people getting the benefit from that, which is called agata sakriti. But where are the arti jignashur artati? Where are the seriously inquisitive persons who recognize that there are diamonds, figuratively speaking, being tossed out every day in the hundreds and thousands by the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, who are jostling, who recognize the value, who are stepping up to catch the diamonds, the jewels of the holy name, prasadam, festivals, books, and philosophy. Who? I'll tell you. Manusyanam sahasrisu kastid yatate siddha yatatanam siddham kastid mam veditadvaram. Krishna already predicted it 5,000 years ago in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna says, considering that we have come to this material world to forget Krishna, and considering that this is the winter season, this is the Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, in spite of all the good fortune, all the balls which are being hit out of the park, there are very few, not even 1 in a million, who is eagerly anxious to catch the ball and make their lives successful. Prabhupada says, generally, mankind is simply engaged in the animal propensities of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, and hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. And as far as the identity of our loving Creator and Father, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, whose portion of a portion of a portion of a portion is the gigantic Mahavishnu, who creates the material world, who enters into the material, each material universe as Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and then who enters into the heart of every living being as Triyodakshay Vishnu. As far as his identity, the identity of the original personality of Godhead, nobody knows him. Even big demigods like Brahma, Indra, and Shiva, They have their stories. Brahma Vimohana, the lifting of Govardhan Hill, incidences where even his topmost servants within this material world were illusioned, were unsure and confused about the qualities and potencies of the Supreme Personality of God. What to speak of the mental speculators, the impersonalists, who are trying to know the transcendent Lord with their material minds and intellects, and forget about the fruit of workers who are little better than animals, just eating, sleeping, and mating, defending. Even Sripad Sankaracharya, an incarnation of Lord Shiva, Rudra himself, the head of all the impersonalists, has admitted in his commentary to the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but his own followers do not accept Krishna as such. And what is the reason for that? It is very difficult to know Krishna, even though one is elevated to the position of the demigods, or even though one has transcendental realization of the impersonal Brahman. Who is it amongst trillions and trillions of living entities who can know Krishna? The answer is Ata Sri Krishna Namani Namavedgrin Sevan Mukhi Jivado Shayamevas Paradyanaham. No one can understand Krishna as he is by the blunt material senses, whether those are the senses of a human being, or whether those are the senses of a demigod, or the senses of a yogi, or the senses of a sages. The fact is that these material senses don't have the scope to understand the Supreme Lord, who is beyond, forever removed from, and separate from matter. However, that Adokshaja, that Supreme Being who is unapproachable by the material mind or the senses, makes himself available, reveals himself to those with whom he is pleased by dint of their transcendental loving service unto him, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. And when you are under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, as are all the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, how is the spiritual master going to engage you? In what direction is he going to guide you? Simply this: throwing out balls. I'm left-handed, I hope you don't mind. You're probably, most of you are going to throw them with your right hand, figuratively speaking. Throwing out balls, prasadam, cooking, transporting, distributing, books, printing, translating, publishing, packing, taking them to the streets, putting them in the hands of the conditioned souls, festivals, writing out a SEA, a special event application, dealing with toilet rental people and renting the parks and getting the permits and getting the insurance and organizing the performers, and again prasadam, and inviting intelligent, wise devotees to do the question and answer, other devotees to lead yoga classes, others to make exhibits of painting, and then, of course, the parade itself, building the Rath Yatra chariot and bringing Lord Jagannath before everyone, throwing out balls. But in Los Angeles now for 40 years, they've done a Rath Yatra on Venice Beach, and every year they pass out 10,000 plates of Krishna Prasad free of charge. If you're serving the Guru is going to engage you, throwing out balls. Prabhupada says here, in spite of the fact that thousands of members of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness are every day selflessly throwing out balls, hoping with the end result that conditioned souls, Nityabhadas, will catch those balls and make themselves from eternally conditioned souls to eternally liberated souls. Nevertheless, Prabhupada says, those who cannot catch the constitutional truth are again merged into the Mahatattva at the time of annihilation of the material creation. And when the creation is again set up, this Mahatattva is again let loose. This Mahatattva contains all the ingredients of the material manifestation, including the conditioned souls. That's what you have to look forward to. if you don't catch up the absolute truth as it is being thrown out by the devotees. You only continue to chew the chewed, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, sometimes from an iron pot, sometimes from a gold pot, going on and on from lifetime to lifetime, from species to species, from higher planets to lower planets, going on and on interminably, frustrated, never reaching a point of satisfaction. And then finally, the universe is annihilated, it's dissolved. You're retracted in the body of the Lord, then boot, boot, boot. Then you come out again after a vast period of time. You continue to do it. So devotees extend themselves. They work for the welfare of all living beings. They would like nothing less than for the conditioned souls in this material world suffering birth, disease, and old age to solve the birth problem, to solve the death problem, to solve the disease problem, to wind up their sojourn in this material world and go back to home, back to Godhead. And all it takes is the simple adjustment that I am not master, I am simply the servant. 3/4 of the creative energy of the Lord are the spiritual world, the self-effulgent, ever-existing spiritual world, and it is inhabited by 3/4 of the manifested living beings who emanate from the Lord. They are not subject to annihilation and recreation. They are happy. They are firmly situated in enjoying as predominated living beings, and they will never be reborn. This 1/4 portion of the Lord's creative energy only is set aside for the country fair, the traveling road show of this material manifestation generated from the Paramatma portion of the Lord, Karna Daksha Vishnu, and it is to this 1/4 temporary material dark portion of the Lord's creating that the living beings come due to their sinful desires and to their past misdeeds. Those who inhabit this material world at the present time have come here, have received a body which is temporary, which is basically and essentially miserable, should not have come here, they need not have come here, but they have been awarded the body for material sense gratification. Rishabh Dev counsels us, he advises us. It is not seemly, it is not comely, it is not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself in the repetitive activities of sense gratification by which he perpetually gets one material body after another. And we'll finish our session today on Wisdom Wednesday by reading this final section of the purport to the first verse in the 3rd chapter, the 1st canto of the Bhagavatam, by Srila Prabhupada. Primarily, this material world is divided into 16 parts, namely the 5 gross material elements and the 11 working instruments or senses. It is like a cloud in the clear spiritual sky. In the spiritual sky, the effulgence of Brahman is spread all around, and the whole system is dazzling in spiritual light. Now, the Mahatattva, the material creation, is assembled in some corner of the vast, unlimited spiritual sky, and the part which is thus covered by the Mahatattva matter is called the material sky. This part of the spiritual sky, called the Mahatattva, is only an insignificant portion of the whole spiritual sky. And within this Mahatattva, there are innumerable universes. All these universes are collectively produced by the Karna Daksha Vishnu, called also Mahat Vishnu, who simply throws his glance to impregnate the material sky. So our word to the wise on Wisdom Wednesday is the best advice that we can give you is simply to echo the advice of Lord Brahma, the creator of this material world, the head of our sampradaya. It's the best course of action for the living entities conditioned in this material world is to awaken your Krishna consciousness and go back to home, back to Godhead. The history is that of all those souls that have returned from this material world back home, back to Godhead, not one has ever come back a second time to this material world. Having gone to that supreme abode of the Supreme Lord, the conditioned souls never again return to this world of birth, death, and disease and old age. So if you're sick of going up and down, coming and going, manifesting and non-manifestation, then just do one thing. Transform your consciousness from master to servant, from mainly trying to become the predominator, to enjoying the peace, the bliss, the comfort, the protection, the love of the predominated living being in the hands of our Supreme Father, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Until we see you again on the weekend, or at the latest, hopefully, next Monday for Motivational Monday, don't forget to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We found that by using my right hand, I can actually scroll through and thank those who joined us. Nityananda Das, thank you very much for coming on. Bill, always a pleasure. Thomas from Idaho. Anjali, yes, our bright and shining devotee by Bobby. I don't know why my hand doesn't appear because I'm putting it right in front of the screen, but I guess it's mirroring. Dibya Joshi, thank you. Rakesh, Radhe Sham. We had up to 18 people watching, I think, at one time. So thanks very much for joining us for Wisdom Wednesday. And until we meet again, please chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.